Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Double Down with Breslo, where we cover the world of sports betting. And we've got a great guest on with us today who just got back from the annual gaming conference in Las Vegas, G2E, the Global Gaming Expo, probably the biggest or close to the biggest gaming expos in the world. Happens once a year in Las Vegas. And here to report on what he saw and the latest trends that we're seeing in online sports betting is Oscar Silver. He is an analyst with Waterhouse VC, a fund that concentrates on wagering and gaming business. So, Oscar, welcome to the program. We're looking forward to your report.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Look,
Yeah,
G2,
so you're coming to us from London?
yes, that's right. So I'm based in London. The fund is based in Sydney, Australia, and that's where the rest of the team are. But I guess being in London helps when you're speaking to businesses all around the world.
Yeah, centrally located for the world, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
If there is if there is any central location for the world, it's got to be London. It's not Sydney. Sydney's a bit is a bit remote, even though it's amazing city. Where did you stay in Vegas? I always have to start with that because Vegas is my favorite town to visit.
So it was actually my first time in Vegas. So in my research into where to stay, I looked into a couple of hotels and I found the Flamingo, which was the oldest. I believe it's the first hotel on the Strip. So I
That's right.
meant it with something memorable. And yeah, look, it was a bit. You could tell it had been there for a while, but it was a great hotel, and yeah,
Yeah, it's the oldest and probably now the cheapest. So you get some history with you and you get a bargain.
exactly.
What was I have to ask you because I've been there so many times and maybe at some point I stayed at the Flamingo, although I don't recall it. But it does make me curious. I mean, it is a prime location on the Strip, but it's known for being kind of an older hotel. How was the condition of the rooms? Were they upgraded and renovated, or kind of a little musty smelling?
No, they were good. They were fine. I was worried about my adapter situation, but they had some sort of smart thing where I could plug all my devices into. So, yeah, more than okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, that's the Bugsy Siegel Hotel. I don't know how much of it is still original. Like, did you kind of like try to get the flavor of it? And because there was a famous pool. Like, I don't know if that's still there.
Look, it was actually my first time in Vegas, so I didn't really have a benchmark for comparison. But I think if I was to sum up Vegas as a place, I think yeah, the Flamingo captured it well. It's full of lights and entertainment, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, make sure you watch the movie Bugsy if you haven't seen it yet, because that's all about building the Flamingo Hotel and this crazy idea of building a hotel in the middle of the desert. I think that downtown Vegas was always there. Fremont Street, which is just kind of had a bunch of honky tonk casinos in it because gaming was legal. But I think that was Bugsy's big idea is that, oh, you got gambling's legal here. You're only a 4 hour drive from LA. Let's build a hotel here. And he was kind of like the same level of visionary as Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn probably gets the credit for taking it to a whole nother level, to the level that you saw. So was it everything that you had hoped for in Vegas?
Oh yeah, everything and more. It's an unbelievable place. Like from
Yeah.
the land, I couldn't believe there were slot machines as you're waiting for your baggage. Like that's crazy. But yeah, no, it was a great place, and yeah, I spoke with some great businesses over the last while I was there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, supposedly Vegas is hitting a little bit of a soft spot right now. Canadians aren't real happy with America right now, so apparently they're not coming. Europeans, we understand, you guys have been told that, don't go to America because you might get arrested and deported. What is there any messaging like that? I mean, honestly, I heard that some countries issue travel warnings for the US.
If there were, I hadn't seen them.
Uh-huh.
I think maybe G2E is probably yeah, it's certainly a very busy time there, so maybe it's not the best week to kind of get a sense of how things are there, but look, the place was buzzing throughout.
So ICE didn't bother you. You were never tracked down by ICE officials.
No, I managed to escape them.
All right, before we get to the business at hand, you have to, were you able to do anything fun besides business there?
Uh, Went to a event hosted by Altenar and Next.io, which was in a suite at the Palms, which was pretty cool. I had an indoor basketball court in, which yeah was pretty wild. So shot some hoops. That was probably yeah as fun as it got for me.
Yeah, yeah. The Palms is known for having some amazing suites and, of course, amazing views of the strip since it's like just off the strip and it's got awesome views. Cool. Well, I'm sure you'll be back again next year or hopefully so. So, give us just a quick background on Waterhouse, the Waterhouse Fund, and then we'll get your Vegas report.
Sure. So we're an investment fund focused on technology suppliers within the wagering industry. So really, we're looking at any business that provides value to an operator's model. Tom Waterhouse is our chief investment officer. He comes from a long line of bookmakers in Australia. So they were on-course cash bookies, so taking bets at the track, which his great grandfather did. His grandfather, his father, who's also a professional, runs a professional betting syndicate. So Tom, coming out of university, did the same, joined at the track, and they had a very successful business. In the early 2000s, everything went online. So you had a change in the advertising laws in Australia. You had mobile internet and 3G, and everyone betting on mobile phones. So the on-course cash business went from being a great one to an okay one pretty much overnight. Tom had a reputation and a brand from being in the ring and set up TomWaterhouse.com, which was the fastest growing betting brand in Australia. Scaled from like 100 customers to a quarter of a million customers in 6 months. Um, and that was a great business, but you had all the major UK operators over there competing, and really it's a game of scale. So he didn't have the scale to compete with those FTSE listed players. His business got acquired by William Hill as part of a roll up. And yeah, Tom was asked to stay on and manage William Hill Australia, which he did for 4 years. The fund really came out of the learnings of being an operator. Profits at that time were being squeezed in the industry from operators to suppliers because of changing taxation regulation. And when William Hill was acquired by PokerStars, um, Tom had a 2 year non-compete, and really we found that the suppliers were a grossly overlooked segment of the industry. So we decided to focus there. And really, the fund has been going for 6 years, and we focused our attention on the tech suppliers within the industry.
Cool. I had forgotten that PokerStars bought William Hill. PokerStars bought my company, probably for a lot less than William Hill, for sure. But yeah, there's a guy named David Bazoff was running PokerStars at the time, and then they ultimately sold to Flutter. We had a small kind of lottery and Indian gaming business. So what kind of businesses are you guys focused on now specifically? Is online sports betting a big focus?
Yeah, it is a big focus. We're really looking for businesses that add value to an operator's model. So, if you can imagine, the industry used to be so heavily reliant on advertising as a way of acquiring customers. That really doesn't exist. Like Vegas is something different, but um, generally it's pretty hard and it's going to become increasingly difficult for operators to advertise freely. Really, the way that they compete is on product. So they're always looking to add new products to their offerings. You've got to be competitive in that respect. So we focus on those businesses that allow an operator to differentiate on product, whether it's an odds feed for a sport, it could be a business that helps reduce acquisition costs. It could be a mobile betting app or like an app developer. It's pretty varied in what we look at. But yeah, really, it's the picks and shovels opportunities.
All right. So what did you see in Vegas that caught your eye?
Well, I think Vegas, when you walk through the casino lobbies, you see a lot of slot machines and tables. And if you go into the conference itself, I'd say most of it reflects that. So there's a lot of kind of you're seeing the opportunities that you're seeing out on the floor and new games being demoed. So it is geared quite towards land-based operators, I would say. but it's Vegas and it's a very well-known conference, so you get a lot of innovative businesses traveling to be there, and we try and meet with as many businesses as possible during a short few days. Looked at a lot of odds-related businesses, so things that can help operators improve their trading operations. Looked at a business that improves visibility for when you're on a casino floor. So for the user, for like VIP players within that casino, stuff that gives visibility on which slots are performing hot, which are running cold, and that kind of stuff.
And what were people talking about in relation to sports betting in the U.S.? Any big developments that everybody seems to be focused on?
Well, look, I think prediction markets are on everyone's minds at the moment. They've been incredibly disruptive, since the election last year. I don't think anyone would have predicted that the growth that they've had in such a short amount of time. But they've done an incredible job, in capturing user interest, staying relevant. There's been lots of events to speculate on. They've added sports betting to the rostrum, and they're now rolling out parlays. So it's a very competitive product, and I think a lot of the incumbents are probably quite fearful of their existing position.
Yeah. I mean, have there been reports? Is it actually impacting the traditional books like FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, Caesars? Is it actually taking a piece of their business, people believe?
Well, I think there's a frustration that they can access states which the traditional sportsbooks can't. California and Texas being two of the largest states, it's a huge segment they're missing out on. Um, but yeah, I think FanDuel have partnered with the CME and are considering launching their own prediction market style product. But really, I think the lesson for the operators is they need to innovate more. There's a lot of things that prediction market platforms have done incredibly well. It's the simplicity of the product. I think a lot of people who weren't previously interested in betting like the appeal of like seeing percentages representing outcomes, and I think it's just going to drive more innovation for the industry.
So, where did prediction markets start? Did it start in the U.S. or did it start overseas?
Believe it was the US. They're not a like a new phenomenon at all. But really they've kind of been written about in academic literature. And I think it was Shane Copland of Polymarket who really took the idea forward during COVID. So he's based
And yeah, he's based where?
in the US,
Yeah.
New York.
And what about has it spread to the UK?
Well, look, Kalshi have you can access the sites at the moment, and Kalshi have just closed a new funding round, and they're going to be able to access, I think it's 140 countries, betting into one single liquidity pool, which is pretty attractive. So that announcement was made, I think, 2 days ago, so it's still pretty fresh, and I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out just yet, but yeah, it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, so I'm in California, nothing's legal here, but I have not checked out one of those sites yet. So I think I'm intrigued enough at this point to do it. But in California is allowing it right now. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's right. I definitely recommend checking them out. I mean, they've definitely reached a point in which they've become very relevant for, I saw a clip the other day of a South Park episode talking about prediction markets, which I just found mind-blowing. Tom Brady mentioned it on an NFL coverage the other day, talking about Poly Market. So yeah, I think they're going to become increasingly popular, and they're very exciting.
And what about for you guys at Waterhouse? Have you guys made any investments in that area or anything in particular you're looking at?
We haven't to date. We've seen some exciting businesses in that area because you can imagine like there's a huge amount of growth there, a lot of excitement, a lot of investors wanting to get involved. But really, it's still very early on. So I've seen a business that kind of looks like a Bloomberg, basically applies like a Bloomberg style terminal. So you can get improved trading decisions, looking at changes of volume in the market, where user interest is, that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot out there. So it's a space we're watching pretty actively.
And in that space, let's take Polymarket or any other companies that you want to mention that are becoming big in that space. Is it primarily about predicting sports outcomes, or is it a bunch of other things?
So Kalshi has been very sport focused, whereas Polymarket, you will see a lot more action on global events. So everything from wars to who's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So you'll see more volume traded on those events on Polymarket, and then Kalshi is primarily sport focused. And I think that really stems from the fact that sports betting is illegal in a couple of those states in the US.
Okay, and then again, haven't been on it, so you got to walk me through the basics of it. Let's just take a regular football game and how it's handled on one of those predictive markets versus a regular website. So a regular website, I'm going to go on and I'm going to take the Cowboys -7. I'm going to bet $110 to win 100. I'm betting against the house. Once I place my bet, that's it. I'm down. Doesn't matter if the line moves or not. After I place my bet, I've got the Cowboys -7 for the game coming up on Sunday. Walk me through that same football game on Polymarket or one of these other ones.
Sure. So I think it's changed a bit since they first launched, but you can have typically the game outcome is represented as a percentage. So it will, and that percentage represents the likelihood of an event happening. So with the traditional sports book, money lines represent probabilities, but you don't see those probabilities when you're hovering over a price. With Kalshi or Polymarket, you actually see the percentage chance of something happening, but you can also have that price represented as a money line or a decimal odd or fractions. I believe that's the case, and really it's an exchange. So it's pooling different participants together, and there's a buyer of a bet and there's a seller of a bet, and and
Mhm.
it's a they're all yes or no outcomes. So it's a binary contract. So an outcome either settles as happened or didn't happen. So you can take both sides, and you can also trade out of the positions pretty easily if there's enough liquidity in that market.
So it's more similar to the stock market, right, than it would be a betting website in that sense, as far as how it works. So does that mean that with the stock market, for me, in order for me to buy a share of NVIDIA, somebody has to sell me a share of NVIDIA. So you've got the market is matching up the buyer and the seller. Is that the same situation here?
Yeah, exactly. And they've done
So,
stuff to attract market makers, providing incentives, um, and generally because they've like a lot of the exchanges, like certainly in the UK, they introduced fees. Polymarket and Kalshi, the fees are pretty low, and that basically encourages a lot of liquidity to the platform. So yeah, you can often get a better price on those platforms in theory if there's enough liquidity there than you would for a regular sports book.
so what would be the fee on $100? We'll call it a bet,
I'd have
essentially.
I'd have to check, but I think it's pretty minimal.
Uh-huh. So way better deal than the 110 to win 100, in other words.
Exactly.
Uh,
It,
and
it,
then
it can be that way.
and then do they also have point spreads?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. It will be. I suggest you go check it out afterwards. It's
Yeah.
there's a
I mean,
lot
I
of
don't see why theoretically they couldn't have point spreads, but of course, uh, you could have spreads. You could have any spread you want theoretically. You could have the Cowboys -7. You could have them -3. Just depends on how much liquidity you've got to for people that place a bet. But I presume sometimes somebody's going to try and place a bet, and you can't find somebody on the other side. I guess that's possible if it's not enough liquidity.
well, I think that's why it's so difficult for challenger prediction market platforms to come to market, right? It's you've got to provide the liquidity for users to place both sides of the bet. So that's what Polymarket and Kalshi have done such a great job of. Shane Copland was he's appeared regularly on Bloomberg. He's made the product simple to use for Polymarket. And similarly, Kalshi has done a great job of staying in the limelight and putting up event contracts on things that people are interested in, things that you would regularly chat about in the office, whatever's in popular culture or in politics, and yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the lay of the land in the US is that it's legal from a federal level standpoint. In fact, I think it's a little bit regulated federally by I think it's the FTC perhaps that regulates it. But from the state standpoint, I think this would be considered sports betting, and most, half the states don't allow sports betting, so it would be illegal. The other half say you can do it as long as you're licensed and regulated under our gaming commission, which these guys are not. So uh, I was a lawyer many years ago. I didn't practice gaming law in particular. However, I dealt with gaming law a lot when I ran my company uh, back in the day, and I, I think it's a problem, state by state, and I think there have been some injunctions in different states, or certainly some legal action in states, and I'm sure it's the FanDuels and DraftKings basically saying, WTF, as they paid all this money for their license and et cetera, and all of a sudden this is being allowed, and they're going to be like, no, 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 this can't be allowed.
Yeah, there has been a lot of pushback, and I don't think we definitely haven't seen the end of it. So it's a space to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then a state like California where we don't have betting, but you have the state in a situation where, well, wait a minute, if you're allowed to do this, then but we're not getting a piece of it because in the states where they're allowing online betting, the state is taking a pretty significant tax off the thing, and California is totally missing out on that. So it could be a driver that causes a state like California to shut it down, but then go ahead and allow uh, full-fledged
Often,
sports betting.
I think that's exactly right. Often when you have a gap in a market, and you have a way of getting around like look at sweepstakes, that could be a trigger for iGaming being rolled out more broadly in the US.
Yeah, yeah. It's all called gray gaming, which used to be my company's expertise. It was a company called Diamond Game, and we basically invented the machine that looks and plays like a slot machine, but legally was not a slot machine. And it skirted the laws and this and that. I won't bore you with all the details of how our machine worked, but we got it determined in court that this thing, even though it looks like a slot machine, was legally not a slot machine. It dispensed you like a lottery ticket on every play, and that's how it was not a slot machine, even though it looked like one was spinning reels. And once we won in court, and all the Indian casinos were allowed to have these non-slot slot machines, then the states just decided, okay, we might as well let them have regular slot machines, and that way we can tax them. So it's very similar to this situation where they're breaking down the door, the state's not allowing it, but they're allowed to do this other thing that's essentially the same thing, and the state finally says, okay, fine, then we're going to go ahead and allow full-fledged sports betting. So it ends up being the driver for that, and we got basically pushed out of that market because all the big boys then came in and took the market. This one will be interesting because if that were to happen, sounds like those companies are getting so big that that maybe they'll be able to transition to regular sports betting if somehow they get pushed out of the market or this is determined to be illegal.
Quite possibly. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
tax is probably the most likely first step.
Yeah. It's just like, all the big companies now were the ones that started in fantasy. And fantasy was questionable legality when that started. FanDuel and DraftKings, though, they got all the customers so that once you legalize it, they were in best position. Let's talk about, I know you guys look at international opportunities, and I read something about Japan and what's going on there. Are you guys tracking Japan and what's going on in their gaming markets?
Yeah, Japan's a very interesting market. They've got a sports passionate fan base, so sport is very popular. But there's only four licensed sports which you can bet on, and they run through a pari-mutuel. So you've got horse racing, keirin cycling, motorbike racing, and boat racing. And those are the only four sports that you can bet on legally in Japan. But they drive huge amounts of turnover. But at the same time, because that's the only market offering, there's a huge amount of offshore leakage. So it's somewhere where a lot of offshore sites have managed to target Japanese users who are passionate about betting. They have a similar style kind of sweepstakes model called pachinko and patchy slot, which is basically where you bet using metal ball bearings, and when you win, you exchange those ball bearings for tokens, which you then exchange for gifts, and then you can exchange those gifts for cash at a nearby shop. So that I can't remember the revenue numbers. It's something ridiculous. I think it's like at least 45 billion of turnover for those events. So in the regulated market, I think the four sports combined do 57 billion US of turnover in 2024. And then 40, I think it's 45 billion of offshore leakage, and that figure is going to continue to grow until you see a broader product offering.
So in other words, if they want to bet on the Dodgers game, because they're watching Shohei, they can do that, but they're doing it on something that's offshore.
They're doing it illegally currently.
Yeah, and do we know who those companies are that they're able to bet through? Who's taking advantage of that market?
Oh, there's a huge number of them. And the Japanese regulators have made their first moves to target those operators. They've made it illegal, so it will be interesting to see how they react to that. So they've gone to some of the payment companies, requested that they block payments to these sites. They've gone to some of the licensing jurisdictions and ask them to request that the operators don't target Japanese users. But really, there's so much you can do once the cat's out of the bag because you've got a young audience who've been exposed to these sites. They're betting freely, and now you're saying they can't. So I think the outcome is that you'll see slowly but surely a broader product offering in Japan.
So who are those operators
Oh,
and
they're
where are they located?
all over the world. There's not
So,
one.
the one that I'm familiar with that we have in the US is Bovada. Are you familiar with them? So Bovada, it was Bodog, it was Bovada. It was out of Canada at one point from an Indian reservation in Canada, I believe, and I'm not sure where it's located now. Could be Costa Rica, Latin America, something like that. But it operates in the U.S. and I don't know how they're getting away with it, other than the fact that they're offshore. But they're absolutely friend of mine plays poker on there all the time, but they also have casinos and they got sports betting. And, here it is right in the US, wide open, fund it with a credit card. So kind of gives you an idea how hard it is to put those guys out of business.
Yeah, and look, it's a global problem as well. Markets where you don't have a full product offering, you're going to encourage offshore leakage. So Australia, there's no online casino. In the UK, they've made betting very restrictive. The US, obviously, you've got states where you can't bet online for sports betting or casino. So really, those product gaps drive it. So yeah, it's a global issue, and it's one we're looking at clearly.
And last question, what about China? Do you guys watch China at all? And what do they have in terms of sports betting there?
It's not a market I'm too across to be honest. But yeah, as a nation they love to bet, and Hong Kong, has it's done an incredible job with horse racing. It drives huge amount of turnover. And yeah, I think they're offering football, soccer betting as well as basketball now, which is set to come.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, well, anything being done in Hong Kong, presumably they can do it in China. And then, of course, you got Macau is kind of a crazy market. Do you guys follow the Macau market?
I've never been to Macau, but it's somewhere I want to go.
Yeah, apparently the casinos are about 4 times larger than the U.S. casinos, but they don't have quite as much fun as Vegas has as far as that regard. It's like, from what I understand, I've never been either, but I understand it's pretty hardcore gamblers there.
Have to check.
Vegas wishes they had the gamblers that Macau has.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Though they definitely didn't seem short of appetite there.
Yeah. All right. Well, Oscar, we appreciate the insight and update from G2E this year. Why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you or learn more about the Waterhouse VC fund? It's open for investors?
It is. I would say we've got a website, waterhousevc.com, and we've got a pitch us page. So if you've got a business that is doing something innovative for wagering operators or providing a critical service, get in touch directly there.
Yeah. Great. All right, everybody. That's Oscar Silver, analyst for Waterhouse VC Fund, direct from London. Oscar, thanks for joining Double Down, and thanks everybody for watching and listening to Double Down with Breslo. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Good job, Oscar. Thank you so much. You probably need to get to bed.